What's up? What's up? What's up? Y'all like my intro music? This is real different than government. It's real different. I can't even see who I'm talking to. Maybe that's a good thing. So good evening, good evening, good evening. How's everybody doing tonight? What? How's everybody doing tonight? So my name is Jason Starr. I'm an assistant counsel to the governor. I am a lawyer by trade, but an educator at heart. I grew up in South Carolina. I went to college in Miami, Florida. I was a high school teacher before I came to New York City to live my dreams and go to law school. And I've been kind of on the journey trying to work in community to get equity and liberation and equality for our people. And so, right? Big ups to that. I like to think of myself as like the most ungovernmenty government person, but I'll talk a little bit about how I found myself here. But I do want to just say thank you, not only to Revel and to all of the folks, Lulu, Jacoby, and all of the folks that, let's give it up for them. That invited me to come today, but I actually want to say thank you to all of the community of folks, the pioneers, the folks who started building this industry, because I think I always start with community. I think that whatever you're solving for, whoever you're helping, whatever objective or goal you have, when it comes to solving community problems and addressing community issues, you always have to start with the community because all of the answers are right there. And so to me, I feel very thankful that this community of folks and folks like you have welcomed me in, have been patient as I've learned about the work that you're doing, have challenged me in my thinking, and I hopefully have been responsive to you. So I just want to say thank you for letting me grow and build with you, and this is just another, milestone on that journey. So I want to start by saying thank you. I try to help make public policy, right? And there is no more exciting opportunity in public policy making right now than cannabis legalization. And today we're going to talk a little bit about licensing, and I think I'm going to save some of the more specific advice to my other panelists who have either are licensed operators in other jurisdictions or who have more experience from the operators or applicants' perspective. But I want to talk about a little bit about how in New York we've arrived at what we think would be a market that does provide a lot of opportunity, and really why that is important. So I was talking backstage to some folks, and you got to realize that, for almost 100 years, for 90 years, prohibition has made us sort of stick our head in the sand and pretend a couple of things. Pretend that consumption does not happen and has not continued to happen and occur with pretty regularity, and also pretend that access has not continued to grow and that a market has not developed. And so when you talk about the political imperatives to legalization, you got to kind of solve for two things. One is, and I think this is widely accepted, and I hope everyone in here agrees, is that we have to fix the harms that prohibition have caused, particularly as it relates to poor communities of color. That's an absolute mandate. You cannot begin to talk about legalization or put any effort towards legalization until you acknowledge the fact that prohibition and marijuana and the enforcement of those laws have been specifically targeted, that it is a lever, it is a touch point, it is a beginning for so many folks in a system of mass incarceration. I want to decarcerate, and so in order to do that, you really have to look at legalization as one point in time for us to begin to do that. So to me, that is a fait accompli. We have done that already politically. We have said that is no longer acceptable. It is a moral imperative that we fix that. And so collectively, I think we should all give ourselves a round of applause just for making sure and making that we've gotten to that point. But the other side of that coin is that that informal market provides an economy in so many communities, right? And so what happens when we solve for the one side of the coin, but we have to address the other one? What happens when you potentially take away all of that economic value, all of that capital that's happening in an informal market? I look at the numbers game and the lotto as an analog, right? The numbers game provided so many communities with banking, with cash, with economic viability where there was none. It funded mom and pop stores. It created an economy in communities that were dispossessed of capital, that were dispossessed of the economic opportunities of a formal market. And then you transition that out, and then you have to be careful that you take care of that economic concern. And so when you talk about licensing, to me, really what you are talking about is thinking about building a piece of public policy that creates a robust opportunity for economic activity and growth to persist. And when we look at how we think that this market should be structured, in large part, solving for these issues, particularly how are we going to make sure that individuals who are participating in the informal market now, individuals who are saddled with criminal convictions, for whom it's hard to get things like capital, who need technical assistance, who may for the first time be dealing with a regulating entity. All of those things are very important in order to make sure that we meet with success at the mandates that we have. And so I want to talk about two or three pieces that I think we'll get into in a little more detail in the question and answer. But the first is you got to have a lot of opportunity, right? And so one of the things you see in the New York proposal, I think, is this idea that we are resistant to vertical integration, right? The idea that just by virtue of the fact that we want to, similar to the alcohol model, break up those tiers of production and distribution, to have enough opportunity for retail locations and dispensaries, so that folks can have multiple ways to get into the market. Some of them may be requiring significantly more capital, and we don't want to sort of paint everyone with a broad brush. There are folks who have had the opportunity and do have access to capital that can build larger market concerns, like potentially cultivation facilities, but also having a distribution chain, a retail chain, and then all of these other ancillary businesses, on-site consumption facilities, delivery, trucking, you name it. And I think one of the things that we are learning from this community, from folks who are operating, is just really all of the robust opportunity that can bloom when you act with intention about who gets a chance to participate. And what we do as public policy makers and as regulators to make sure that we go out and we find folks who are already doing this kind of work, either in the informal market or with other goods and services, and making sure they understand and know that those opportunities exist. That's architecture, right? That is the thing that I think folks are looking for when they look at the law that we've drafted, when they look at the policy. You're looking to see if the architecture reflects equity, and if it does, then it should have opportunity, right? It should have robust licensing opportunities at all tiers of the market that contemplates that there's a lot of different ways that this industry is going to grow, that it has grown and will continue to grow, and that regardless of what skills and talents and innovations you bring, that there's a place and a space for you that's going to be recognized, and that's going to be elevated and celebrated. So that's architecture. And I think, that we've done a good job, at least in the outset, at providing a market architecture that reflects and respects those opportunities. But architecture isn't really it, right? And I think, and I want to encourage folks to make sure that when you're thinking about the policy in New York or elsewhere that you are involved, and when you're asking questions about how do I get involved, and where do I fit in here, where is my opportunity, that you challenge the construct and say, just because you have architecture, you also need culture, right? You need culture. And that means that you need to make sure that that architecture, that license or that permit or that opportunity meets you where you are. right? And sometimes I think the challenge is that government expects people to meet it where it is, right? And I don't know if everybody knows how to go on and look at, a unified licensing application online. I don't know if people know where to go to get information about what their requirements are or how they can potentially get funding or technical assistance or loans or grants. All of that stuff is built into the architecture, but it doesn't mean anything if the culture about how this industry is going to develop and how we are going to engage with you also grows and is also informed by who you are and what you need. And so that's the piece of it that I want to make sure we continue to press into, and that I, as a regulator and an operator, continue to learn from you. What do you need to meet with success? I don't know. Maybe you need a workshop or an incubation space in your community, in your neighborhood, that's run by somebody you know, that you trust, that you can identify with, that can answer questions in the way that you need them to be answered in. Or maybe you just need a bridge loan to take the $10,000 check that you have and double it or triple it or quadruple it, so then that can become capital for you to open your dispensary or to get your delivery license and purchase a couple of vehicles. Maybe you just need very specific information about what cannabis is and how the plant or the products derived therefrom might meet or solve for a need in your community. Maybe you are a health professional and you see folks in your community potentially using in problematic ways, and you don't necessarily understand what that means, but you can see it causing some harm. And so you want to figure out, how do you open a harm reduction space so that folks who may be having some issues with their family or employment or education and may be solving for those problems by using, can actually transition, engage in some less harmful use, and actually get the supports they need. There are so many different ways that we can meet you and understand who you are, but it requires that we build the right culture. So remember, for me, architecture, ask the questions. What do the licensing opportunities look like? Show me where they are and what they look like. How can I get involved? What's the state going to let me do? And what does this license actually mean? And then culture. How are they going to make sure that once I have it, that it means something, or that what I have actually gets reflected into the kind of industry and the kind of business that we are building? And I'll close by saying this. I think that people often talk about this as a once-in-a-generational economic opportunity. In the last 100 years, we have not engaged in building this kind of industry in our state and really in our country. And I think that, folks see that and it's exciting. It can inflame a lot of passions. I've been to a lot of panels and workshops where they've been like, stone him. But really, I know what it is that people really feel like we're on the precipice of something, and they want to be a part of it, and they want to make sure that it doesn't go the way that some other kinds of things have gone, where we have borne the consequences of something only to watch other people bear the fruits. And I don't think anybody in this space wants that to happen. And I can tell you, as a responsible public servant, I don't think it can happen, at least not on my watch. And so what I look at it as is an opportunity for us to do government better, right? An opportunity for us to demonstrate how to be more responsive to the people that we serve. An opportunity for us to demonstrate how to engage people before we make decisions. And I know it will never be perfect, but I will say that I'm so proud that we took time to actually build into what we were doing. We talked to every state regulator. We talked to regulators from Canada. We did 17 listening sessions around the state. We really got out, and as much as we could, we touched people, we listened to them, and the policy changed. Now, I don't think that process is over, and I know that people, I was told to kind of leave folks with a sense of hope, and I know people sort of, and I will say that, the process of creating public policy, it is iterative, right? You get something, and then you figure out how it doesn't work, and then you come back and you demand those gaps be filled or those things change, and then you go back and you try it again. And that is the push and pull. That's the push and pull. But I think sometimes, and I think a lot of times it's government's fault, is that we pretend to listen to you for a little bit, we go back and we do our thing, and then we say, here it is, and then it's just a lot of people being very upset because it doesn't work, right? But it doesn't really work like that. Right? What really should happen is we should start here, we should come back here, we should respond back to you, you should say that doesn't work, we should come back to you, and we should keep going on this road until we do achieve these goals. We want to protect public health right now. We want to make sure that if there are things out there in the market that shouldn't be, if there are people who are using that need some supports and some help, we want to make sure that we build an industry and create public policy that protects and promotes public health. We also want to make sure that we promote and protect public safety. And when I do that, I start by saying we need to address the way that marijuana has interrupted the way that individuals think about our institutions and our public safety institutions, right? And so we want to make sure that we do that. And the last thing is we want equitable economic opportunity. Those are the three legs of the stool. Those are the three objectives. And so I encourage you to challenge me and my colleagues to make sure that we continue this process, whether we pass a law next week, whether we pass a law next month, whether we pass a law next year, regardless of what happens, this train left the station. This energy that you built, this demand that you had to solve for this problem that we, government, weren't solving for, that can never be turned around. That can never be changed. That can never go backwards. This is happening, right? And so, right? This is happening. And so what we've got to do is, as stewards of the industry, as participants, as operators, as applicants, as aspirants, we've got to continue to bring the same kind of energy we brought to get us here through, and we've got to continue that once we have an industry in the market to make sure we hold ourselves, our elected officials, all of our stakeholders accountable to achieving the mission and to getting to where we need to go. So again, I thank you for your time. I thank you for your energy. I thank you for your welcoming. I thank you for allowing me to be a part of this community. And I just so look forward to continuing to build and to grow community with all of you. Thank you so much.